Alright boys, today I'm a little bit salty because we have this new secondary banner for the whole Battle in New York 2022 versus Odysseus, Tesla, whatnot. And so they put out this second banner that has both Gilgameshes on it. Now why am I salty? People are like, hey, Gilgamesh is your favorite character, isn't this good? Another opportunity to get him. I mean, aside from this being quite literally like his 5 millionth rate up, I mean, we could show down here. This guy comes down like literally every other week, right? He is one of the most common rare servants to be coming out. So it's like, it's almost like of all the limited servants, there's like a meme of like, who doesn't have Gilgamesh at this point? But the reason I'm upset isn't that, it's that they haven't given him any buffs. They didn't buff either of these dudes, right? Like when these events come around and they give these limited servants buffs, because they don't come out very often, I think these are the prime times to go ahead and buff them. And the fact that they haven't done that is a little infuriating, because these characters are going to start to fall behind, especially because you guys know we just did that video talking about Tesla and how Tesla is probably by and large the best AoE buster archer right now. Like, the man is just absolutely insane after his most recent buff. I mean, he gives just insane utility to the party. He's giga consistent. He has a damage mod that's pretty much as good as Gilgamesh's own. And so this guy really needs something, but so does Catskill, right? Catskill has the potential to not only be the really good arts crit support servant that we really need, but he also has the potential to be like a secondary art support servant that's more widely available, if that makes sense, because he's a 4-star, so it's easier to get than say someone like Castoria or Tamamo. So in today's video, we're just gonna spitball some ideas, just kind of talk about things they could have given to these guys, and I'd like to get some thoughts from the community as well, being like, hey, what could these guys have gotten? What do you guys think they need? You can throw in lore, whatever you want. I'm just going to talk about what I think the characters personally need to be very, very competitive. So going ahead and just starting off with Gilgamesh. Obviously, like, I understand why they really don't touch this guy, right? Because his NP is really strong. Like, this in and of itself, by itself, in a vacuum, is a very powerful NP. Because he's getting a very fat NP damage buff that procs when he fires his NP. He has a buffed NP, so it already does more damage because of the higher damage scaling, and he has one of the best damage mods in the entire game. In fact, like, if you just look at this tag, the amount of servants that just don't get hit by this are very few and far between, right? There are like very few servants that actually just don't get tagged by it, right? So it's a very, very strong damage mod. You could pretty much bring him to fight like pretty much any servant in the game, right? There's very few of them that just don't get tagged by it. But then you look at his skills and it's just like, dog, he's not really doing anything with his skills. This is kind of nice, right? Because it's a very high charisma, and this was really good early on, and it's still somewhat good to this day because it does multiply into this, and because this is a 30% value, this is a high 150% value, and this is 21%. When those multiply into each other, because if you don't know, different buff types in FGO actually multiply into each other, they don't add into each other, it lets him do a lot of damage. But at the end of the day, he's not really doing a whole lot else aside from being a very strong beat stick. But there are other beat sticks in the game that actually do more, right? For instance, you have someone even like Ishtar, right? She has a charisma that is 1% weaker, but it also gives crit damage to the entire party. She has a better battery, she has survivability, and she has the potential to pierce enemy invincibility, which lets her get around invincibility and dodges, because for whatever reason, pierce invincibility also just takes the job of sure hit as well. And so it just leaves Gilgamesh over here just, I don't know, feeling a little lackluster. So there's just a few things that I want to see him get. Now, first and foremost, I think some kind of like invincibility or survivability would be really good for him, because if you guys have ever like read the Fate Stay Night novel, or you know, you just seen some of like the stuff that he has, or read any of the interviews with Nasu, apparently Gilgamesh is just insanely tanky, right? Like, he literally just grabs Excalibur and like throws and ragdolls Artoria around in their first encounter, right? In the saber route, he pretty much just bullies her the entire time. And then apparently Nasu is just like, yeah, my man Gilgamesh over here has a shield that can block a swallow reversal from Sasaki Kojiro over here. So apparently he's got insane defense. Apparently he is insanely tanky. His armor is apparently very strong, but we just don't have any representation of that, right? So like, maybe some form of either invincibility, or if they want to go like giga impressive and give him something like solemn defense, something unique to only him. I don't know what they would call it. Maybe they could just rip off a noble phantasm and rename a skill. Something along those lines would be really strong. Now that's just kind of me like having a little bit of wishful thinking if they want to go and make him a bit more balanced, right? And being like a standard DPS that has like their attack buffs, their defensive skill, and then they have like a battery of some sorts. But I think the thing that Gilgamesh probably needs the most is I would just like to see him get a really strong crit skill. Like I think honestly on this charisma, if you either have it be a 30% crit damage buff to the entire party for those 3 turns, or a 50% self crit buff for 3 turns, I think that makes Gilgamesh insanely powerful, because then the fact that he doesn't have any defensive buff does kind of suck, but it's going to be like Gilgamesh is probably just going to obliterate the enemy with his high NP damage and his absolutely monstrous crits, right? So I think that's a really good way to go around fixing him. I would also like to see on this skill, I'd like to see the 50% NP gain right here. That's fine, but I'd also like to see like a 50% crit star drop buff or something as well on this as well, because Gilgamesh has insanely high natural hits to the point that even though his star gen is not super high, he can actually drop just an insane amount of stars because he's got 5 hits on everything and 8 hits on the extra attack. So he's just an absolute machine if you want to make him able to drop stars. And I think you give him that 50% buff, not 100 or anything, nothing super crazy, but we just give him that. And I think it makes him insanely crazy, because then with his first skill, he would have the solid attack buff, a very solid crit damage buff for either the party or just himself. I think going himself is the better route. And then this would allow him to, this fixes up his NP gain, and then we also give him the star gen buff, and that would actually allow him to be super self-sufficient. And then I don't really think you need to do anything here. This is fine, because, you know, if you have them with double casters, sometimes they can steal the stars, because casters and archers have very similar star weight, where both of those are pretty high. So, you know, your Merlins and stuff could try to steal away your stars. So this is very nice for that. The 30% battery is fine because of the append skill down here. If you just go ahead and level that up, technically it's a 50% battery, so he can get away with that. That's kind of just what I'd like to see with Gilgamesh. Maybe if they want to rebuff the NP and just add Pierce Invincibility on it, that's like icing on the cake for everything that I want, because that would basically mean, because, you know, Enema Elish, like in Fate, every time he uses it, it just pretty much obliterates whoever he uses, right? And doesn't it just feel weird that in FGO you can just throw up a shield or throw up a dodge and you kind of just bypass it? I don't know. I think giving it like Pierce Invincibility would be really nice, or something along those lines, or buff removal. If it was buff removal and it just completely slammed people, I think that's also very fitting. But that would make Gilgamesh pretty broken if we give him all those buffs. But it would make him one of the best archers, if not one of the best buster servants in the entirety of the game. It would make him absolutely insane. And then Catskill over here, I know people really like Catskill, but I think he's built very wonkily, because, for instance, he has the crit damage buff here, but if you're a support caster, you want it on your skill so it's more readily available. So we're just going to kind of alter things around here. I really think we need to like go ahead and like actually start buffing most of the things here. I think honestly, you give Gilgamesh, the other one, the archer one, the 50% self buff, and we give that 30% crit damage buff to the entire party to this skill right here, because he's supposed to be more of a support type servant. So I think we lean into that and we actually give it to him on this. That means he actually has a way to immediately give you crit damage, but also if you're going to use him for more extensive periods, he can actually go ahead and give you some more crit damage as well over here. We could try to lean into him being defensive as well. I think that'd be more fitting if we put it here. This is already absolutely insane. If you don't know why, it's because arts cards have a 0% value of genning stars naturally, which means they don't naturally drop stars, right? But then you buff it by 100% and you actually guarantee that every hit on the arts card will actually drop a star. And that's why this is really insane, because not only is it bonkers if you give it to a quick servant or even a buster servant, but if you give it to art servants, they just become absolutely insane because they're looping the best, they're doing the second best damage after buster, and then they're actually stealing Quick's job and just dropping stars. So this is absolutely insane. But as far as like what I would like to see on this, ideally, if we're not going to lean into his secondary thing where he's trying to for some reason make the party tankier, I would probably give this like NP gain or something, right? Like maybe 30% NP gain to the entire party, 30% NP gain plus maybe a 20% battery, something along those lines, because Unfortunately, in today's day and age, if you're a caster but you're not giving the party NP, you're really kind of frowned upon and aren't considered as good, even though Catskill does have a very unique style of buffing Arc Servants. I think he needs to have some way to give the party some form of NP, and I think this would not only be good for that, but it'd also help him a little bit, because as you can see up here, they actually neutered his NP gain ability because it has so many hits on it, and they didn't want him to loop too easily. So that would kind of help him out just a little bit and make him a little bit of a wet, like less of a wet paper towel with his NP. I don't really think we need to touch this too much. Maybe you could put the 20% battery on here, or you could just do the NP gain here and the battery here. I think that could also work. But the fact that they didn't do any of that, they didn't even touch either of these people, and the only thing they did was they were like, yeah, man, his costume's available, which is like, yeah, like that's sick. That's really dope. Thanks. But most people won't be able to get this because it's 5 cubes. Then again, I guess it's free if you get Babylonia. But so I guess that's the announcement, is just don't ever buy it because you get it for free for Babylonia. That's cool, but like, it's just buffs. Buffs for servants are always like the most hype thing for them to get, right? Because it breathes new life into them. It's almost like re-releasing them, right? Especially for year 1 servants, right? Because simple things like just adding buff removal to Ku Altar's NP, or dropping 30 stars on Jalter's NP when they buff both of those, not only do they get more damage, so they're a bit more relevant, but then now they're also like, their gameplay's been revitalized a little bit. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Maybe I'm just throwing a temper tantrum. Maybe I'm just a little too upset or something. But it just makes me upset because it's like, it's kind of lazy, right? In a way where it's just like, it doesn't take very much for you to just add a little buff on here. And it goes a long way to incentivize people to summon on this. Because honestly, even as much as I like Gilgamesh, it's like, if you just want the better unit, you're just going to go summon on the Tesla banner, right? Like, he's just so much more far and away the better unit, that it's just, why would I even bother, right? It's like, Tesla's got the party support, he's got his own survivability, he does consistent very high damage, he's got one of the most pretty broad insane damage mods as well on his NP. So I don't know, just let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, I upload FGO videos every single day, so leave a like and subscribe. I stream every day over on my Twitch, so if you'd like to come, you know, watch me play FGO, Elden Ring, or I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh sometimes, you can go to the Twitch down below. If you want to support the channel for free, I am sponsored by both LD Emulator and Loot Cakes. LD Emulator is a good way to play mobile games on your computer, and Loot Cakes gives you a little bit of points every time somebody in my alliance spends money on FGO. So even if you're a free-to-play player, you can get a little bit of points back, and the more people we get, the faster we accrue points. The more points we get, the more gift cards we can get back. So, you know, if you want to earn a little bit back for your spending that you're going to be doing anyway on FGO, I think it's a pretty dope service. So yeah, with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace late, guys.